All right, so this is our first overview of Photoshop on an iPad and how you're going to use it with your digital SLR to upload and edit pictures. So in another video, I've showed you how to move your pictures from your digital SLR onto your iPad and especially and most importantly into Google Drive. On this one, I'm specifically going to show you how to use Photoshop in this Photoshop app. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm just going to touch on how to bring in a picture and what things you might do right away with that picture that are subtle and simple fixes that might help you make for a little bit better image. But again, it's nothing advanced at this point. So the first step is we're going to tap that PS Photoshop app. It's going to open up. If you're not sure how to log in or it's saying you need to log in, all that stuff, there is a video available that shows you how to do that using your proper login to make sure you can access the information. So this is your first screen though, once you've logged in, that should really walk you through how to utilize the app and work with your different images, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to walk you through what you're seeing here. Okay, up in the top left, of course, you have kind of a home button that's always there. Top right, you have a settings button that's always there. You can change it from a dark theme to a light theme, all that kind of stuff. On the bottom left, you have a create new, which will just create a blank new document basically. And then the one you're typically going to use, I would assume, is import and open. And so that comes in two places. One, it's in the center middle here, and the other, it's in the bottom left. So I'm going to click that import and open. And what it does is it gives you three options. So if I tap that one or I tap this one, I can choose from photos, files, or camera. Generally, you're going to want to choose from files because that's where your Google Drive is going to be linked. And if you've been following how I want you to organize your pictures, all of your pictures should be available in that Google Drive, because if you just put them all on your iPad will run out of storage. So you're going to click on files, and then you're actually going to, you should see on the very front screen, you should see something that looks like this locations or cancel. Now mine was already set to Google Drive because I was practicing with this. So if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, click on locations in the top left, and then you can browse through all the different things you have. Now you'll click on Google Drive and it should bring up all of these different things. This is a lot of stuff, and you want to make sure that you organize yours properly. So for instance, for me, I know that my folder is called photography. So if I search for that, there's Photoshop, but I'm not seeing photography. So that would be worrisome to me, but what I need to make sure I do is go to Google Drive, not Recents, and then do photography and search for it and say, oh no, there's nothing there. But I know it's there, and so that's where you don't want to panic, because if you didn't actually make these folders, you would be like, oh no, this isn't working, what's going on? But if I just scroll down, I know I made it, and I know it's here, so I can go down and look, there it is, photography, one item. I'm not sure why that's not showing up, but if I tap that, now I have my subfolders in photography and all my sub files. And that's why it's really important to know what folders you're making and know what they're called, because that search function doesn't always work. So then I can go to any of these images, any of these examples, anything that I want to edit, and you're going to have all your projects in here. And then I can start to edit those. So I can go to my photography work, for instance, and I know that I have some pictures in here. I can go to the Mass of the Holy Spirit from 2018 to 19. And I'm going to get all of my pictures loading into here. It might take a second because it, might be finding your pictures for the first time, but there's a ton of images in here. Now you'll notice a lot of these aren't labeled, and that's something I would need to clean up if I was in the class, but some of them are. So this is Father Scott Santa Rosa, who came and presided at Mass at the Holy Spirit back in 2018. So I'm just going to tap on one of those as an example. So I'm going to tap on it and say, okay, I want this one, Santa Rosa 2. So, and then I'd open a picture like this. Okay, so now when I get my image, it opens up in this kind of standard document viewer. Now with this standard document viewer, I can do several things. Up in the top left is the home button. The top right, there's the question mark. There's an export button. There's a kind of a cloud service, which we don't use. We're not using the Adobe Cloud service. You're using usually your Google Drive. And then there's also a back and a forward button up there. So undo, redo, that kind of thing. In the top middle, you can tap on that zoom button if you want to physically zoom it. Or you can use your two fingers to just pinch in and out to make that bigger or smaller for your editing purposes. So for instance here, I might really want to zoom in on something because I might want to edit something. And I'll show you what that can do in a second here actually. Okay, so then over on the left, I have a couple other options. One option, you can see how you can rotate it to, is I can also kind of shift it or warp it. So that's the top one here. And I can make that bigger or smaller, which again, in the future, you'll kind of see why that might be important, but I can transform it in a lot of ways. Now, if I don't like that, I'm like, ooh, I really messed that up. I can just go to the undo up at the top and undo all of those changes. I can also warp it in kind of unique ways there, as you see those warps working out. But again, I'm going to undo that. So you might not use that one initially. This one allows you to select stuff. You can use your finger just to select it, which is pretty cool. Those are called marching ants. We'll talk a lot about those in the future. But that's your selection, your lasso tool. You can also do it as a square instead of doing it as a finger lasso. You can use it as a square and it'll select a perfectly square area. Now the cool thing about that, of course, is then you can draw just inside that square area. And we'll talk about that in the future. But for now, I'm going to say I want to deselect. And at the bottom, you see you get these options, so I can deselect that area. Below that, you have a paintbrush. If you hold down, you'll get all these different brush options. And then if you want to change the color, you just tap the color and you can choose something else. The 274 is the size of your brush, so you can make that smaller or bigger, and it corresponds to you there. Below that is an eraser, and it's quite literally an eraser. So if I increase it, I can literally erase stuff on the picture. Below that is a bucket. That bucket we'll use in the future a lot, but the bucket basically tries to paint whole areas of pixels. So you can end up with some kind of fun collages there. Undo all that. This Band-Aid is really cool. It's typically known as like a healing brush tool on normal Photoshop, but what it allows you to do is basically the following. So if I zoom in here, and let's say I don't want you to know about my English department business, what I could do is I can take this healing brush tool and I can say, I don't want students to see this, and watch what happens. What it tries to do, and it's actually kind of funny, it's messing it up. What it tries to do is it tries to guess the pixels around it and then fill that in. So it tries to fix whatever those pixels are with other pixels. So it works well when there's nothing around it and you just want to fill that in. See, it kind of gets rid of it eventually. But again, it's going to mess up if there's too much information around it. But over time, if you just go like this, it will fill it in because everything around it's white there. And so it just takes a little bit and you're effectively making it disappear, which is kind of cool. So for instance here, if I'm like, ew, this looks disgusting on my wall, let me fix this. This can be really nice in your pictures that you take if you're like, ooh, I don't like, there's something there that's on my lens or whatever. This just allows you to fix that much more easily, and it's super convenient. So this might be one you use early on. Okay, below that is the one you're definitely going to use early on, which is the crop button. And I can crop this, I can make it a different size, and I can say done, and then I have a new frame for my picture. You're definitely going to use that early on. Cancel, cancels it, of course. Then you have text, and then you can import an image as well. If you have multiple layers of images, which you'll do in the future, you might use that. And then this little ink dropper is cool. If you hover over anything with your finger, it tries to make that exact same color. It does make that exact same color, whatever the pixel is. So you can exactly match certain colors, which is really, really cool. Over on the left is a whole bunch of really complicated stuff, so I'm not going to worry about that in this really intro overview. And we will, of course, cover that all throughout the class. The cool thing is once you get this down, this really speaks to what you'll be doing with Photoshop when you get to the actual classroom. It's the same skills, it's just a different way to approach those skills. Okay, so let's say you're done. Let's say you're happy with this, you finished, this is a good edit. Then up at the top right, you can push export, and you have to export it. You have to publish and export it, otherwise it won't be saved anywhere. And to publish and export it, you have to tap it, choose a JPEG or PNG. Don't do a PSD or a TIFF, but PNG or JPEG, most likely JPEG. Make sure your quality is as high as possible, and then you can export, and it'll ask you where you want to export it. Now, you could go right to your Google Drive, go right back to the folder, because that's what you're going to send to me as an assignment, or you might just save the image to your iPad. If you click Save Image, it's going to be in your camera roll. So I'm just going to do that now, just as an example. So I tap that. It says Export Complete. I click off that. I can double tap to go home or to go away, just single tap. And now I can go to my photos, and it might not appear right away, but it will appear within some matter of actually kind of basically producing the image. So notice it says uploading 2 items. So it's just kind of getting to the point where it's trying to get those pictures in here. So if you move around, eventually it will come up. You can kind of play with these things. But obviously it's exporting a new picture, and it's trying to make sure that it's there and good for you. And here it is. It's already in recents. And there it is. There's the picture. Notice those things are gone now. So that worked out well, and it exported the proper picture. So that's the basic overview. There's so much to do in Photoshop, but that's just kind of to get started. You need to understand those basic first actions.